Good evening. We call to order the City of Mason Planning Commission meeting for Tuesday, January 13th, 2015. Happy New Year, everybody. Can we have roll call, please?
Commissioner Barna.
Here.
Commissioner Hude. Mayor Pro Tem Brown.
Present.
Chairperson Reeser.
Here.
Vice Chair Sabaden.
Here.
Secretary Waxman.
Here.
Commissioner Fisher.
Here.
Commissioner Scott.
Here.
Commissioner Hagel.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. Commissioners, before you, you've got the minutes from our December 9th meeting of 2014. Any changes, corrections, or additions to that? If none, I'll accept a motion to approve.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir.
I move to approve the minutes from December 9th, 2014 as presented.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the minutes as presented. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. That motion carries. Item number 4 on our agenda tonight is unfinished business. Commissioners, any unfinished business? Having none. Item number 5 is the oath of office. We do have a new commissioner. Welcome, Lori. And we do have commissioners that are going to be re-sworn in beginning for their next term. So at this point, commissioners that will be getting sworn in, if you could join Deb right out there in front of our circle, we'll go through the swearing-in process.
Stand here. Face me.
If you would raise your right hand, please. Repeat after me. I do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of this state, and that I will faithfully execute the duties of the office of Planning Commissioner in and for the City of Mason, County of Ingham, State of Michigan, according to the best of my ability. Congratulations.
Congratulations and welcome, Lori.
Very good. Welcome again, Lori, and welcome back, Commissioners Scott and Barna. All right, at this point of the meeting, it's time for election. It's a new year, so every year we have an election of the chair, the vice chair, and the secretary. So at this point of the meeting, I will turn over to Deb, who will run the election.
Thank you. At this time, I would like to open the floor for nominations for chairperson.
I nominate Ed Reeser for chair.
Are there any other nominations? Are there any other nominations? Nominations are closed. As many as are in favor of Ed Reeser as chairperson, say aye.
Aye.
No, say aye. Say nay. As many ayes have it, and Ed Reeser is elected as chairperson.
Thank you, everybody.
Nominations are now in order for vice chairman, chairperson.
I nominate John Sabaden for vice chair.
Any other nominations? Are there any other nominations? Nominations are closed, and as many as are in favor of John Sabaden as vice chair, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, say nay. The ayes have it, and John Sabaden is elected as vice chairperson. Nominations are now in order for secretary. Are there any nominations?
I nominate Seth Waxman.
Are there any other nominations? Are there any other nominations? The nominations are closed. All of those in favor of Seth Waxman as secretary, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, say nay. The ayes have it, and Seth Waxman is elected as secretary.
Thank you. Congrats, John and Seth, and thank you, commissioners. All right, now that you can calm down. Next item on our agenda is item 7, people from the floor. This is an opportunity for the general public to come and join us and come to the podium and speak of any topic related to the Planning Commission. Sir, if you could please state your name and address for the record.
My name is Mike Waltz, 482 Riverwalk Drive. First, I'd like to say Happy New Year to the Planning Commission, and congratulations to Ed, John, and Seth for re-election to your positions. I just wanted to stop by tonight. I was in the neighborhood and welcome Lori Hagel as the new Planning Commissioner. Knowing Lori's work ethic like I do, I'm sure she'll be a welcome addition to the Planning Commission. I'd also like to welcome Marlon, but Marlon's reputation precedes himself, and I got to thinking, been here, done that. So if I could just direct your attention to an excerpt from the Planning Commission special meeting minutes of June 7th, 2011. Under introductions, Waltz introduced newly appointed Commissioner Marlon Brown. So here we are. Welcome again, Commissioner. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. All right, having no others in our room this evening, we will move on to announcements. First announcement, again, I'd like to welcome Lori Hagel. Lori, if you could just take a minute and just tell us a brief synopsis about yourself. We'd sure appreciate knowing a little bit about you.
Okay. I'm a paralegal at Fraser Trebilcock in downtown Lansing. I've been there for over 26 years. I have 2 daughters. One is a surgical tech. The other one is studying psychology at MSU.
Great. Well, welcome aboard.
Thank you.
Commissioners, any other announcements? All right, moving right along to regular business. We do have a discussion again on the medical marijuana ordinance. There has been some things that have gone on or didn't go on accordingly with our state legislature. So at this point, Mr. Colburn, in the absence of Mr. Haywood, could you kind of share with us, please, about the latest that we should know?
Surely, Mr. Chairman, and thank you. You're correct, and that's one of the key issues in which we were waiting for is what was going to happen at the state legislature, and basically none of the legislation that was being proposed really proceeded forward. In November of this last year, the City Council had approved another extension in regard to the moratorium on medical marijuana operations. There had been an ordinance passed and then a moratorium placed, and this is ongoing. In essence, now that this issue has been deferred several times in terms of not implementing the ordinance, because there is so much going on in terms of motions at the state legislature and case law as well. As a matter of fact, quite recently, there was an addendum added on to one of the budget bills at the federal level, which is impacting what the Attorney General's office will do to pursue prosecutions or not. And I believe that's going to have an influence at the not just the federal level, but work its way through in terms of influence of the public policy in the upcoming years. Basically, you were asked to hold off until we see what happens at the end of the year with the state legislature. We now know, and that was that they did not take action. So in light of that, the next step would be for the staff working with the Planning Commission to pursue a dialogue in terms of the influences and how you may want to see the ordinance developed for the community, assuming that at some point it will be implemented. We can't go on for a moratorium and extend it forever because that is illegal. We have to have then a working group to be able to pursue that dialogue and how to implement it within the city in the most appropriate manner as designated by first the Planning Commission and then to work together on a joint meeting with the City Council to work through the policy. And there is a deadline. It's May 16th for this particular extension, so the time is of the essence to have a viable dialogue and have it meaningful, and to be able to then put it in front of not just the city council, but the community as a whole. So I spoke with the city attorney, Tom Hitch, on this issue. He is making himself available once you have a committee, or if you want to do it as a committee as a whole. I know you talked at one point of doing a subcommittee, and not only to give you a briefing, but then to work with you in terms of how to possibly implement it within the city. So, Mr. Chairman, at this point, I would suggest that you look at forming a committee and identifying who has the willingness and the time to spend towards this, and have at least a couple of dedicated meetings. First of all, I would recommend establishing a date and having the city attorney there to give you the legal perspective that would help you and guide a little bit in terms of how you pursue your discussion. So at this point, I would wait to hear back from you and this committee as to who would be on that committee and when you might be available to meet.
All right. One question I do have for you, Mr. Colburn, is in setting up for that subcommittee and in having the city attorney meet with the group, I guess I question, do we want to have that subcommittee and have the city attorney share it just with the subcommittee? Has there been any word from, and maybe Mayor Pro Tem Brown can share on this, from council, rather than having the city attorney give the opinion to a subcommittee, to the planning commission of a whole, to then city council? Would it be prudent that we have a workshop meeting between the commission as a whole, of those that can make it, the council as a whole that can make it, and allow the city attorney to give us one presentation, so at least we all start on that same foot going forward, then we break into a subcommittee?
I think that's certainly an option that you have available to yourself. I believe the council would probably be very open to that, having that discussion. And I do think it was the intent at some point to have a joint meeting. So at that point, it's just a matter of establishing what date that might be. I'm looking at a calendar right now and what may or may not work for you. I know typically your availability is on Tuesdays. Council's meetings are Mondays. Just kind of throwing this out there. The next city council meeting, of course, is the 19th. So possibly the 26th or 27th of January, and I know I've not had the opportunity to confer with anybody on this. I'm just trying to put dates out there that might help with getting that discussion going.
Well, I guess I'd like to open it up even to, again, Mayor Pro Tem Brown as well as commissioners. How do you feel about that? And do you think you could be available, like on a Monday, whether it's pre-council meeting? The next Monday is the next council meeting. I'm not sure we can schedule it that quickly, or if council wants to talk about it and see if we can do something maybe the last week in January, or the first week in February. I don't want to see waiting too long, but I just remember the last time we had this discussion that we had the workshop after we kind of gotten involved a bit, and there was a lot of backtracking. On did you think of this? Did you talk about this? So for the benefit of everybody involved, that's the reason I want to at least give council an opportunity that we don't have to have the city attorney talk to us 3 times and necessarily 3 different viewpoints each time. So, commissioners, do you have anything to add in on this? Commissioner Barna.
I guess my thought is that, there's so much detail here that the reason that the council asked us to look at it was because they wanted us to research it and think through the issues first. I'm not against I think it's a great idea to have them involved, but I'm not sure that leading off with that is necessary. But I don't have the experience that you have from the time before, so I don't know. But, it seems like there's not only the city attorney, but there may be other, information and resources that the committee might be looking at as well in terms of gathering information to help put a presentation together for the council. I guess I'm also wondering, I think, and I read in here, I'm not sure, the that we need to take input from the public, from the general public as well. That's what the memo says in here. So I'm not sure when would that happen in the process, and is it our role as a planning commission to gather that input and share it with the and process it before we share it with the city council, or are we really just talking about making a city council meeting, having like people always have the opportunity to give public comment on what's going on at the city council? But I don't know. Those are my thoughts. Thanks.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Brown, could you elaborate for Commissioner Brown, or you just got comments that you're going to make in addition to?
A little bit of elaboration and a little bit of commentary as well. Based on reading the memorandum, I believe that Mr. Haywood is suggesting that whatever work group arises, whether it be a committee of the whole of the Planning Commission or a smaller component, that some vehicle for public input would be beneficial. Commissioner Barna is correct that there would be the normal city council process if we are indeed changing the ordinance that is currently on the books. There would be public hearings that would be necessary for that the council would then have to hold. However, it might be beneficial to get some degree of community input before it even gets to that step. And so I think that it might not necessarily have to be a formal public hearing process here at the Planning Commission level, but certainly some vehicles, some surveys, social media, or even just a community discussion might be beneficial so that once the commission recommends something to council, it already has a little bit of public support. That being said, I see both sides of the coin with regard to the commission taking the bull by the horns and then recommending something to the council, or getting the council on the same page at the beginning. I personally think that a joint workshop would be beneficial. That way the city attorney can brief all of us on the case law and what is currently going on and what the best course of action would be. At present, we have a medicinal marijuana ordinance on the books. However, we have a moratorium that prevents us from issuing any licenses for caregiver operations or dispensaries. So the real question is, do we look at, one, whether or not there is some vehicle to permit this as a suitable operation in the city, and whether we craft a brand new ordinance or simply tweak the ordinance that is currently on the books, or if the commission and the council decides to take another option similar to what we did a few years ago, saying that we feel that there isn't quite yet a mechanism in place to have an actual healthy regulation of this. And so I think that question probably needs to be answered first before you do some work. I would hate to see the commission do the work and then we get to May 16th and say, boy, we should have considered something else from the beginning. So, of course, we're willing to work with you. The idea of recommending this to the Planning Commission, it was actually my suggestion, but I know that this body is very deliberate. You guys are the pulse of the community, and I think that this would afford all of you an opportunity to delve into the issue and offer your viewpoints as residents of the community, and to, quite frankly, spend a little bit more time on this issue than the council might be able to spend over the next 3 or 4 months. And so that was the reason why we delegated it at this time, but we also see it as a collaborative exercise as well. So I hope that adds to the discussion, and I'm anxious to hear what some of the other commissioners have to say as well.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Brown. Commissioner Barnett, that kind of helped too with a little bit of, I mean, it's still out there, but just to...
Yeah, it sounds like we need to do both, right? We need to potentially have a workshop with the attorney that gives some basic information that sort of lays out what the current situation is, and then maybe the recommendation that the attorney might have in terms of the options that are available. And then maybe the Planning Commission group would then go out and, gather additional information, or and then do the public input part of that as well. And then bring all of that back to the City Council for their consideration. Is that?
Pretty well sums up
I mean,
what we're looking to do.
Yeah.
And I'm all in favor of doing a subcommittee, don't take me wrong. I just know that, as we indulge into this, and as Commissioner Barna pointed out, we'll be looking for public input. And when public input starts getting in, and then if the council, in addition to the commissioners that may not be in that subcommittee, get questioned, it would be just good to have everybody on the same page to begin with. And, I don't want to let history dictate where we go, but we should let history be a guide. And we did end up having some of that backing up last time, and some clarifications that had to be done. There were some questions when we did get to the City Council / Planning Commission workshop. We had the city attorney there. We had the police chief there. It was a good turnout. It was a very good discussion. But there were some questions, if you will, from people that were involved that didn't realize this, or, oh, that covers that. And that's the only reason that I bring that up is, just to make sure that, we're not all going down, a dead-end road at 85 miles an hour, and somebody forgot to tell us that the sign was removed, that it's a dead end. We want to make sure that we go in a path that is going to be diligent. This is a serious, ordinance that we need to follow through with, because there's a lot of ways of, being able to decipher what happens to our community. I mean, you can drive up and down Cedar Street in Lansing now, and there's caregiver storefronts all up and down Cedar Street. There's, grow places and all this type of stuff. And, if, we want to keep Mason in legal as well as our hometown community, there's things that we all need to be on the same page for. So I don't want to talk and run in circles, but that's just, where my concern comes in on everybody being on the same page. And, the directives coming from City Council, yes, we have a job ahead of us to figure this out. We just want to make sure we have all on the same page and the right tools to go forward. So I guess we're kind of at a crossroads here, that we've got a couple different routes to go. I think we should probably look at who would be interested in being on a subcommittee. And so we can, at least get that established. If we don't make a decision tonight on who all wants to be on that subcommittee, I'll entertain, getting emails, sent in to say, yes, I've looked at my schedule and I could do that. So at least we can, come up with a subcommittee that could meet. But I think, again, Mayor Pro Tem Brown, if you could go back and talk to council about a joint, workshop, whether it's, sooner the better. Again, trying to get before Monday night's meeting could be a little difficult, but I do know that we've met before a council meeting, and with them starting at 7:30 instead of 6:30, it kind of helps us out a little bit. Maybe we can have that quick meeting, or whether another night of the week is best. So, and if commissioners, if you could kind of take a look at your schedules, is there a night that could work for you? Council is used to meeting on Monday nights. However we want to go forward with that. I'm not sure on that part of it. I don't want to establish that for anybody, but, I do think that would be a pertinent way to go. Mm-hmm. So at this time, Commissioners, is there anybody that is interested in serving? Commissioner Barna, Commissioner Sabaden, Commissioner Scott, Commissioner Waxman, Commissioner Hagel?
You just have to be careful not to get the quorum.
Yes. All right, we've got two. Yeah, we do have. Is 5 a quorum, Deb, for our 9, 8? All right, so now we're to a point where who would like to be an alternate? If I think it's good to have the good group. All right, I think what we should do then is that we've got a subcommittee. And, a meeting with that subcommittee of when you folks think is going to be best for yourselves. If somebody's not going to be able to make it, so that we do, not have a quorum, it'd be a great opportunity if we're all included on an email, so we know when the meeting's going to take place. And then if it looks like somebody's not going to be able to make it, Commissioner Hagel, you could be first in line. If it looks like a couple of people are going to make it, anybody else that would be interested could be there at that meeting. So at least we've got that going forward. Yeah, Commissioner Barna.
Can you just clarify, just so everyone knows, why we can't have a quorum at the subcommittee?
It's the legalities of the Open Meetings Act. So if we have a quorum, that means that it's a public meeting of the Planning Commission, and we should be in this motif and not at somebody's house or at a public coffee shop or elsewhere. So that's the reason that we want to keep it under a quorum. That way there's no voting that goes on and tendencies that way of looking inappropriate. So, Commissioner Barna.
That's what I thought, but I just wanted to clarify that it's not that we don't like participation, but we have to be careful not to violate Open Meetings Act.
Yes. No problem. Okay, we've got Barna, Sabaton, Waxman, and Scott. And Hagel in reserve. Great. All right, any other discussion or questions? I mean, as long as we're talking on this topic, it's going to be pertinent for everybody to do some research, be aware of what's going on in the news, the newspaper, and things that are going forward. I can tell you that in past experience, Mayor Pro Tem Brown is up on a lot of that information that comes through in the legislative part of it and can help send out notices as he hears it. But anybody else, Commissioner Waxman is another one that has heard things and shared in the past. So, in as much as we can't meet and, with the Open Meetings Act, if there is information that could be shared via an email of, here's an article, I was in Grand Rapids and here's something that was in their paper, by all means, please share that with everybody so that we can at least keep information going forward. So, Mr. Colburn, you feel comfortable with that and talking to the city attorney that that's what our plans are? And
surely what I'll do is get some dates from you all and see if we can coordinate the... now, will the subcommittee want to meet with the city attorney, I'm assuming?
Yes.
Okay,
the only
so that we can
question
coordinate
we
the
have
meeting.
on that part is getting word back from Mayor Pro Tem Brown and wanting to know what the city council wants to do, whether they can put it into their schedule for a workshop prior to the subcommittee meeting with the city attorney. Our subcommittee could go ahead and meet, so at least they kind of get a little organized on themselves, but we do need to get word back from council's interest on having that joint meeting with the city attorney, so everybody's on the same page as we go forward. Again, as we're talking about, because the public's going to be involved, we need to make sure that these two groups are on the same page as a collective body, so there isn't, gray zones thrown out there.
Is now a good time to see if there's a coordinated date for the 4?
Yeah, if we could do it with a coordinated, I would like to leave that part open for a workshop for the commission as a whole, with the council as a whole, and then going forward from that, as far as the city attorney to tell us all what's going on, and then the subcommittee go forward from there. So, Mayor Pro Tem Brown.
You stated exactly what I was thinking, that even though the commission has a subcommittee that will be carrying the load on this, the workshop would be a public meeting, so the entire planning commission and the entire council would be able to attend, and for that matter, really the public, because it is a public meeting. So it might be a great vehicle for anyone who wanted to kind of just learn where things are. They could come to that meeting, and then from there the committee can really get to work.
Great, thank you. So, yes,
Sure.
Commissioner Waxman.
And just so for everyone's, I guess, best knowledge, and so you can be on the lookout of what to look for, Representative Calton is kind of spearheading the medical marijuana issue in the House. And this has been his issue. His bill was the package of bills that they voted on in the last lame duck session, and he plans to reintroduce his package of bills again. So that's the legislation to be looking for. I don't have a bill number yet, but I know that Representative Mike Calton, Callton, and he's from Nashville, is the representative who's taking the lead on that.
Thank you. All right. The only request that I do have with the subcommittee is when we do adjourn, if the four of you could at least meet and kind of throw out some dates that you could start being able to look at what would be on your regular schedule for meeting and going forward with that. And Mayor Pro Tem Brown, we'll wait to hear back from you on what you have on that part. Great. Thank you, everybody. All right. 2015 unfinished business. Commissioners, any unfinished business for 2015? The other unfinished business we had was to close out 2014, so brand new year, here we go. New business, Commissioners. Correspondence. Commissioners, any correspondence? Nope. Liaison reports. Mayor Pro Tem Brown, welcome to the group. You've had one council meeting for this new year. Tell us what's going on.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It's my pleasure. Mr. Chair and members of the Planning Commission, the City Council had its first meeting of the year on January 5th. The first meeting of every 2-year cycle is always very interesting because you have the outgoing council and an incoming council as well. So the meeting began with the 2013-2014 council finishing up any unfinished business from calendar year 2014. That included approval of our minutes and our bills from the end of December, but that also included having a discussion going into executive session to talk about the city administrator's performance evaluation. Upon returning to the regular meeting, the council then took up Resolution 2015-1, which basically approved the city administrator performance evaluation for Mr. Colburn with an overall performance rating of 3.46 out of 5. The council also looked at an amendment to the employment contract for Mr. Colburn. However, that resolution, 2015-02, was deferred until the January 19th meeting, and so the council will then take it up on next Monday. Former Mayor Pro Tem Robin Nayert gave a farewell speech at the council meeting where she spoke very highly of her tenure with the city, spoke very highly of her experience on the Planning Commission, and mentioned several individuals in the community that she had had the privilege to work with, and we are all grateful to hear those remarks from her. And at that point, the council bid a fond and somewhat teary-eyed farewell to Robin as she goes on to the county commission and serves not only the city of Mason, but a lot of the out-county areas for Ingham County as well. And so we'll continue to work with her in her new capacity. At that point, the 2013-14 council was adjourned sine die, and Deb got to have her moment in the spotlight where she took over the council meeting and presided over the swearing in of Councilmember Waltz, Councilmember Drosha, and myself. All three of us were duly sworn in, and then came the election of a mayor and mayor pro tem. I'm happy to report that Mike Waltz was elected as the mayor for the city of Mason for the 2015-2016 term, and I was elected as the mayor pro tem for the city as well. We both recognize that both former Mayor Clark and former Mayor pro tem Nayert were very pivotal leaders in the community. We hope to rise to that level of leadership and form a leadership team for the council going forward that the entire city can be proud of. And we're committed to working with residents, working with all of our boards and commissions, working with city administration and city officials to make sure that Mason continues to be a great community even with the leadership change. And so we recognize the trust that's been placed in us, and we're very excited and humbled to move forward in that light. After the officers were elected, the council proceeded with a few additional resolutions. Resolution 2015-03 established City Council and Planning Commission meeting dates for 2015. Resolution 2015-04 was a resolution that the council passed naming me to serve as the liaison to the Planning Commission. Resolution 2015-05 appointed Mr. Jim Maddox to the City of Mason Zoning Board of Appeals for a term expiring in 2017. Resolution 2015-06 endorsed the location of the Howell Road option for crossing of US 127 for the proposed trail connecting the Delhi Township Trail to our Hayhoe Riverwalk Trail. If you're interested in reading that report, it's included in our City Council packet from January 5th. But basically, there were 5 options that we considered, and it was recommended that we look at the Howell Road option for crossing US 127. The City Council endorsed that plan. It will then go to some of the other communities that would be affected, as well as the Ingham County entities. We're hopeful that by endorsing this plan and getting the buy-in from some of our neighbors, that this might be applicable to some of the millage that was just passed countywide. We're hoping that some of those resources can then go toward the project of connecting Delhi and Hayhoe. And so we're excited about that opportunity as well. Finally, the council received an update on well number 9 from our DPW superintendent and also from our city administrator. And we decided to go ahead and approve the recommendation to go out to bid to drill a new well. And so council will be taking additional action on that once bids are received, but we are progressing with a new well for the city. Under new business, I did ask the council to look at establishing a visioning session for goals and objectives for this year. We will set a date for that at our next meeting, and I invite all the members of the Planning Commission as well as the general public. If you're interested, you can be a part of that meeting. It will be a public meeting, and we really want to get the year off to a good start by setting some objectives and some goals that city administration can then work toward in the coming year. The council retained a lot of their liaison appointments, and I'll share those briefly. Mayor Waltz will be serving on the Downtown Development Authority. I will be serving on the Planning Commission. Councilmember Drosha will be serving on the Traffic Commission. Councilmember Ferris will be serving on the Tree Commission. Councilmember Mulvaney will continue serving on the Historic District Commission, and I also will retain my role working with the Sesquicentennial Anniversary Committee. Finally, the city administrator gave us an update on the legislation concerning medical marijuana, very appropriate to our discussion tonight, and also an update on the legislation that passed regarding our state transportation road funding proposal. And that was actually signed by the governor on yesterday, and it will be put before the voters in a special election this May. That was the conclusion of the meeting. Our next meeting is next Monday, January 19th at 7:30, right here at City Hall. I know it was a mouthful, but if there are any questions, I'm happy to answer them at this time.
Commissioners, any questions or comments for the Mayor Pro Tem? Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Brown, and welcome aboard again. Thank you. Mr. Colburn, you got a dual hat tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First of all, wanted to make sure that you saw the planning and zoning news. We've handed this out. It's a very good source in terms of not only pertinent issues of the day within planning and in the industry, but also what I enjoy is some of the case law. And a lot of the case law is what helps guide us from day to day in terms of the changing dynamic of what I call splitting the hairs, but that is what case law is oftentimes, is making a determination based on the facts of that particular case that can then guide future similarities of situations in which, whether it's municipalities or other agencies or individuals run into to solve their problems. Really, case law is things having to go almost to the worst degree of a lawsuit, but determination that helps us guide in society. That being said, there's typically some very good articles in here, and I recommend reading it on a regular basis when you get the opportunity. That being said, a few other things going on, just to follow up in regard to the Mason-Delhi Trail Connector. In that study, it was worked through with a grant that came through Tri-County and visited by and spearheaded by a couple of nonprofits that deal with wellness and the greening of Michigan. Basically, they looked at 5 different options of how to try to cross 127. There's the issue of the freeway, but there's also the railroad, other streets, Sycamore Creek, so there's a lot of linear disturbances in which they have to try to figure out how to get the trail down and connectivity from Valhalla Park, excuse me, and bringing it all the way down into Mason. Again, with the recent millage that was approved, looking at that, by having the study in place, being poised to be able to try to get this linkage in place in the future. A couple of other things, 124 and 140 East Ash continues to move forward. They've done all the demolition of the back, a lot of the blight removal, working on the windows. They've gutted the building, and within the next month or so, maybe two, they'll be working on the apartments upstairs. The alleyway behind, we have found there's some deficiencies in the storm drain. It's collapsing, and then in the sanitary lines, there's some misalignments and such, and it's severe enough in which there's a lot of infiltration of water from one to the other. So we're going to have to take corrective action. I've taken the problem to the City Council. We've gotten price estimates, and we'll be seeking to get the additional funding to take corrective action on that so we get proper, not just sanitary flow, but also stormwater flow from that area. It's in the alleyway behind that 100 East block, south of Ash Street, where the project is going in. And that was not unusual. We figure that that type of infrastructure appears to be at least from the 1930s, if not older. Thank you.
Commissioners, any questions or comments for Mr. Colburn?
Mr. Chair.
Yes, Commissioner Waxman.
Regarding the 124-140 project, you had mentioned, I think in our previous meeting, that there was definitive proof showing the age of the building. Is that correct?
My understanding is that they have found some proof that it goes back to the early 1860s.
Okay. Is it, is it I guess my next question is it proof enough to warrant the process for a historic marker for the building?
In terms of all the criteria and the evidence, I don't know. Certainly that's something that we can ask to be looked into, though.
Commissioners, any other comments or questions for Mr. Colburn? Thank you, Mr. Colburn. Commissioners, I want to thank you very much for your time this evening. We've had some good discussion. I also want to thank you very much for entrusting me for the position of this chair for another year. It's greatly appreciated, and I appreciate your vote of confidence. And at this point, we're adjourned.
Congrats. Yes.
You too, sir. Seth? Congrats. You young man, I knew you couldn't stay away from us very long.
I know.
Just so you guys are all aware, Mr. Brown here started off with his public service